Hi, my name is Paulina, a high school student that likes to search about different topics, and welcome to my podcast. Today, I want to talk about gender roles, and specifically about non-binary gender in society like Mexico. Everyone has talked about gender equity, about masculine gender being preferred, and jobs, and some attitudes and issues that women live daily. But do you ever wonder what about non-binary gender? Aren't you curious about what is a non-binary gender and its role in Mexican society? Does feminism even take it as valid? This space is where I like to talk about uncomfortable topics that are important to check, and I invite you to stay. So I would like to start giving you some fun context about what is this all about. A month ago, I started searching for third gender and non-binary gender in cultures and ethnic groups different from mine. And I wanted to do my podcast about these people and interview them and all this, but it was actually pretty hard. I think they live in community and they don't have access that much to internet, so it was very hard to contact them. So I decided to change my topic a little bit. While talking with my family and friends, I noticed that there's a lot of misinformation about sexual diversity, and this includes sex, gender, and sexual orientation. Mexican society had a lot of stereotypes about people by how they look, how they behave, and how they talk. And they usually mix the concepts of gender and sexual orientation. So I decided to do my topic about informating people about how to differentiate these concepts and make it easier for them to understand these people and have a better environment. The way that I gathered data about this topic was through a survey that I made asking about their age, their religion. The reason why I asked for their religion is because I found this report about stereotypes and prejudice about gender that says that some of the factors that favorite an environment for creating stereotypes, prejudice, and stigmas is sex, age, social class, appearance, educational level, nationality, ethnic group, religion, and liberal situation. In my survey, two people talk about how uncomfortable they felt about talking to this topic, and one of my interviewee puntualized about how her religion affected her opinion and the opinion of their parents and society in a different context years ago. My survey was answered by people that had high school studies and even university studies, recognized that sexual education wasn't good enough, and they had to search information through internet and asking some friends that could have wrong information. This was the case of my interviewee Haru that had a difficult time about finding himself. This may happen because we are in a society that is based on digital sexualities. This means that this kind of interaction, the roles are very concrete and not flexible at all. It's just woman and man, heterosexual, homosexual, active and passive, public, private. It's just that way, normal or not normal. According to colonizers, this was since Mexico's pre-Hispanic times, and they had a very rigid system about roles and behaviors. Really important and curious fact is that there were societies that were based on analogical sexual behavior that were more flexible, open-minded, and spontaneous. This was the case of Zapoteca Istmeño ethnic that recognized the third gender as Muxe and Ningyu. These people have specific roles under communities and are mostly respected in these societies. Getting a little bit deeper on this topic, I would like to share the concept of gender. And gender refers about the way society believes that we have to look, think, and act as girls and women, and boys and men. Every culture has its belief and informal rules about how people should act according to their gender. Gender identity is how you feel inside, and how you express your gender through the way you dress, behave, and your personal appearance. Non-binary people are designated to gender identities that are recognized with feminine and masculine aspects. They are not men or women. Those who identify as non-binary should not necessarily appear androgynous. That we can say that you cannot simply tell if they are male or female with a naked eye. In addition, people who identify as non-binary use neutral pronouns and ask to be defined as such. In the case of my friend Haru, he changed her name, and now he uses the pronouns they and she because she feels more comfortable with them. and she asked a lot to be respected, which is using an inclusive language. According to United Nations page, grammatical gender is manifested in nouns, adjectives, articles, and some pronouns. In nouns and adjectives, there is only the masculine gender morpheme and the feminine gender morpheme. The natural gender has been preserved in a few words, such as that, this, it, someone, something, and it. It is important to not confuse grammatical gender as gender in a socio-cultural construct and biological sex. In Spanish, there are different mechanisms to mark grammatical gender and biological sex. Some of them is endings, opposition words like mother and father, and they determine with common nouns regarding the gender, like the student, this representative. There are also specific words that have a single grammatical gender and designate all people regardless of biological sex. The main challenges of Spanish for inclusive communication in terms of gender is the confusion between grammatical gender, sociocultural gender, and biological sex. The level of knowledge of the resources offered by the language itself to make an inclusive use within the norm and association pejoratives that have inherited from social sexism, some female equivalents. Would you even wonder what are the difficulties of having an inclusive language? In our interview, Haru talked me about the difficulties he had by getting a job because people didn't know how to refer to herself. She feels more into like the job was denied for him because of their pronouns and how she managed her image. Using inclusive language may be confusing and hard, but my interviewee, Martha Perez, of 64 years old, said that it wasn't impossible. It just all about respect and empathy with other people. I would like to share an experience that Haru had in a party with her sister and other friends of her.
Él empezó a hablar como con sus amigos y dijo así como, no, es que ella, o sea, ella me empezó a hablar de ella sin yo tenerle que decir nada y dije, wow, qué loco, qué buena onda. Y todos los demás niños, o sea, alrededor de que este chavo me dijo ella, todos los niños me dijeron ella y ella, en todo momento, en todo momento. Y se me hizo súper buena onda y me puso muy feliz porque dije, wow, o sea, como que realmente si a uno desde muy chico le enseñan que está mal como discriminar y está mal como que no, o sea, el simple hecho de no aceptar como lo nuevo, pues sí se me hace muy heavy, pero estos chicos ya sabían todo qué onda así súper rápido y se me hizo súper bonito de su parte, la verdad. O sea, hasta se me quería salir una lágrima de ahí porque están hablando de ella.
This is a perfect example to show how following the example can make us better as a society and make all ones feel included and validated. At the end of this podcast, I would also like to include the opinion of Marta Perez of 64 years old and how she got through this process and her opinion about non-binary people. I want you to remember that this interviewee is a religious woman that has been through a lot of process while accepting the non-binary people and new sexualities.
Hay que ponernos en los zapatos de las personas que quieren ser aceptadas. No hay que darles las espaldas. Son seres humanos.
She has found a way to keep in homeostasis her private life and the respect she deserves and others deserves. And as Benito Juarez said, respect for the rights of others is peace. I hope you had enjoyed my podcast and see you next time. Bye.